What's going on, everyone? Welcome to what day is it? November 11th. November 11th, monthly mentor call. Let's see who we've got on with us tonight. Let's see here. So, if you haven't had a chance yet to listen to episode 57, it's it's been quite an interesting journey. Um, I haven't been able to be 100% transparent up until this point, just from liability, really, standpoint. But I quit my job, quit my day job, which is freaking awesome. If you had told me in January when I launched the podcast, literally January 13th of 2015, that in 10 months I would be going from employee to entrepreneur, quitting my sales job and going full time as an entrepreneur, I would have told you you are absolutely nuts. But that's what happened. And so I highly encourage you to go to episode 57 and check that out and see the story behind how this really all transpired. But it's truly a testament to what happens when you just put some intention behind surrounding yourself with the people who are where you want to be. And you show up every single day looking for ways to add value to other people. And so, man, just it's truly incredible. So, to kind of give you the brief recap, in January, 2 weeks after I launched the podcast, we had our national sales meeting for my medical device sales company. And they had this guy, Jay Papazan, come and speak. And if you've been following the podcast for a while, he was episode 17. He is the vice president within Keller Williams, and he's partners with Gary Keller. And for those of you who do not know, Keller Williams is the largest real estate company in the world. If you've heard of Remax or Prudential or Berkshire Hathaway, Keller Williams is bigger than all of them. And Gary started the company. And guy's just a mega entrepreneur, and he's had so much success, and he's had such a focus on personal development and education that he said, hey, I really want to take the things that have allowed me to become the success that I've been, put them into books for other people. And Jay comes from a publishing background and is a great writer. So Jay and Gary team up to write all the books. And their most recent book is called The One Thing. And let's see. Oh, look at that. The One Thing. Got it right here. So Jay spoke at my national sales meeting, and as he came off stage, I did what I do always. I cornered the guy and basically just shared with him how his message had resonated with me. And I told him about you. I told him about the Mentee podcast and asked if he'd be willing to do an interview. And he said yes. So that was the deal. We did the interview, and then as time had it, I just continued adding value to him. One of the things he mentioned was that he was looking to get interviewed on podcasts to help promote the books. And so as I started to get interviewed on other podcasts, I would start making connections for Jay as well, just as a way to add value. And then I randomly reached out over Twitter, of all places, because I did not have his direct email. I did not have his cell phone. I just had his assistants. And so, but I knew his Twitter handle. And so I just tweeted him, said, what are you working on and how can I help you? This was several months down the road. And he replied saying, Gary and I are looking for a CEO for a new publishing company we want to start. And I said, interesting. I know a bunch of people who would be a great fit. Let's have a call so I can connect you with the right person. And he basically described to me on that call what they wanted to do within the publishing industry and how they planned to truly disrupt the entire industry. And it involved a lot of the principles that I had started to learn and execute for the podcast in terms of internet marketing and taking content and repurposing it and monetizing that content and doing that for authors. And so I ended up throwing my name in the hat, and it was a long 4.5 month interview process. They went really, really deep because the way Jay described it to me, he's like, hey, this first hire is absolutely vital. You have to get the right person in place. So they went really deep to make sure I was the right fit, and also allowed me the opportunity to make sure that they were the right fit for me. But we ended up coming to terms, and it's official. I'm sitting here in Austin, Texas. You probably noticed a new background to what you're used to seeing. It's because this is my new house out here in Texas. So maybe next time I'll have my cowboy hat. Probably not. maybe handlebar mustache. That is entirely possible. So I don't have a lot of structure for tonight's call. I wanted to switch it up a little bit, and instead of just doing the Q&A thing that we've done, I wanted to kind of detour and share with you some of the things that have been going on inside my mind as I make this transition, because this is something I haven't released out on the podcast, and you guys deserve to get a higher level of access and treatment. So that's what this is. So, gosh, it's amazing how even when the moon and the stars align and an opportunity like this is presented, how you have buyer's remorse or buyer's regret. What can't even think of the real term, but you wonder if you made the right choice. And as I landed on the ground here and, moved my whole family, my wife's in her third trimester, we're about to have our second child. I mean, like, this was a no joke of a move. Um, I just hoped that it was the right move. And there's something to be said for trusting your gut. And when you look at the person who you're going into business with, or the people who you're going to work for, looking at them as a human being and asking, are they where I want to be? Are they somebody that I respect? If I had the opportunity to trade lives with them, would I do it? Would I be able to look in the mirror if I were in their shoes and feel like I had an integrity and like I was living life to the fullest? And that was kind of one of the things that I looked at Jay and Gary through that lens. And those answers were yes. Not only are they very successful entrepreneurs, both multimillionaires, they really get it. It's not just about the money. It's not just about the business. They preach family time. They preach being a good human being. They preach charity. Like, I can't even describe being in their presence, what it's been like so far. Just observing them and seeing how they interact with people. I'm sorry I can't articulate it better at this point. I've been with them for less than a week. But I guess when I walked into this, I mean, you imagine a guy like Gary Keller, who he's probably a billionaire at this point. You would imagine certain things. And he's the most unassuming guy. Black t-shirt, jeans, black Converse shoes, and just sits there and wants to invest in you. And he asks you big questions. And the biggest thing that, I'll start sharing some of the things that I've learned from them so far with you. They think a bigger game. At the end of the day, they think a much bigger game. And Jay tells the story about when they were coming out with the one thing. Jay asked, how can we sell 15,000 copies in the first, time period, few weeks? And Gary said, you're looking at it all wrong. You're not thinking big enough. And he's like, how can we sell 150,000 copies? Everything he does is just on such a massive scale. And most of us don't challenge ourselves to do that because we start asking questions that we don't know the answers to. And it makes us uncomfortable. We start to, we have this limit in our mind that is what I like to refer to the range of reason of what we think is reasonable that we could accomplish. And as we start to think bigger, once we start to hit that threshold, we tap out, we usually just let it go. And that's what we assume the limit is until you find that mentor, until you find that person who's already where you want to be, who this isn't their range of reason. Their range of reason may be up here or even higher. And they challenge you to think a bigger game. Whatever situation that you are in right now, whether it's let's do this exercise. Whether you are still in the 9 to 5 or whether you have ventured out into the world of entrepreneurship, I want you to think about how much money you have made this year, roughly. What would you have to do next year to make 10 times that amount? Think about that. If I told you, let's say for round numbers, you made 75 grand, and I said next year you're going to make $750,000, how are you going to do it? very quickly your mind begins to shut down. But what Gary has done is I constantly see him challenging some of the best people in the company to ask questions like that and to legitimately come up with a plan. How would you have to start to act, to start thinking that way? What are the skills that you would have to develop so that you could start putting plans into place to think 10x? What are the books that you'd have to read? Who are the people you'd have to surround yourself with so that you could get comfortable thinking 10x? Meditate on those. And in fact, write those down. Who are the people that I would have to surround myself with? And what are the books that I would have to read so that I could get comfortable thinking 10x? I'm not there yet. I'll be transparent. I think a pretty big game, but even just being in their presence for a week, um, I'm already being stretched, which is good. And I'll share with you in this most recent mission meeting, I did not record this because literally I had movers coming in my house, boxes flying all over the place. We were doing inventory of what was coming off the moving truck. And then I've got like my headphones in my ears. I'm on my mission call. And I just asked, I said, I'm the type of guy who really likes control. I like to understand what is expected of me. I like to understand what the resources are at my disposal. And I like to put a plan in place and just execute relentlessly and get results. That's how I operate. And I'm stepping into a role where I'm starting a company and I'm running point on it. And I've got Jay and Gary there, but it's my company to run. And there's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of unknowns. I'm not sure what my day-to-day looks like. I'm not sure what my resources look like. I'm not 100% sure what their expectations are of me. And that scares me. What do I do? How do I maintain the right type of mindset so that I'm not thinking negative thoughts? I don't have these limiting beliefs that I'm allowing to seep into my subconscious mind so that I start to self-sabotage. How do I maintain positive, productive thoughts and a positive, productive mindset as I navigate through this uncertainty? And before I tell you what Dave said, I want you to ask yourself, what's something going on in your life that you're striving to accomplish where you're not certain of how to get there? You're not certain of what you should be doing. It makes you anxious. You may be losing sleep over it. It may be escalating your stress levels. What are some of those things going on in your life? The thing that Dave said to me is he said, you have to look at things as a way of instruction and not a way of obstruction. Interesting. I just got a text message from somebody saying, are we doing the group call? Yes. I'm on right now. Hold on. Let's see what's going on, guys. Let's go links. Let me email this to some people and test this out. A little surprised there weren't more people on right now. I was wondering why. That account. Bear with me 1 second, guys. Sorry about this. For those of you who are watching. Strange. I love technical difficulties. They make life so easy. William. Yes. Really weird. Okay. Now where the heck was I? Instruction, not obstruction. So often we have these experiences that we view or perceive as something that's going to obstruct us. But if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. he told me the story of this butterfly in a cocoon, how the caterpillar crawls into this cocoon, and he saw it, and he could see that it was trying to break outside the wall, and the wall started to chip down, but it was really struggling. He could tell that it wasn't able to fully get out. So he helped open the cocoon up more so that the butterfly could come out. But as the butterfly tried to fly, its wings were not strong enough. He hadn't had the time to develop the strength of his wings pushing outside of the cocoon. So that by the time Dave opened the cocoon up, the butterfly ended up dying. It couldn't fly. And as he shared that with me, I got it. I got the moral of the story, whether it was real or not, I don't know. Sounded kind of made up to me. But we go through these struggles in our life. Just like when you work out, you need to go through the strain of lifting the heavy weights, of dealing with the hardships, so that you need to go through that strain so that you can ultimately be strong enough to overcome whatever is in front of you. And as he shared that with me, I started to think of the challenges that I'm having as I make this transition, and things that I had looked at as obstructions, suddenly viewing them as the heavy lifting that I need to do so that I can grow into the executive that I want to grow into. And I'd be interested to see how that applies to you in your life. You know, what are the challenges that you're going through right now that right now they seem like obstacles? Right now you wish they weren't there, but if all of a sudden you realize, though, that's the heavy lifting that you need to be doing at this point in your life so that you can grow into the entrepreneur that you need to be, or that you can grow into the best employee that you could possibly be right now. What are some of those things? I see that a few people just joined us. Rob and Bill working on me. Here we go. So the podcast was starting in 30 minutes. Hello, boys. Would either of you like to have a chat? If so, go ahead and request while I squeeze my tea bag. Oh, made it. Jewish white boy can shoot. All right, let's do this. So that's really been a major eye-opener for me this week, is especially when, you know, moving states, completely new industry for a job, going into a startup, which is just completely different. There are a lot of things that are coming my way that I could have easily looked as challenges and wished that they weren't there. But suddenly looking at those challenges, recognizing that they're vital to my long-term success, that they're vital to my growth, that I could never earn the title of CEO without going through these experiences first. Suddenly I become grateful for them. And suddenly I look at them like a game and like a challenge. And that's when it gets really interesting. So I'm going to bring up Rob and Will right now. Return as attendee. Bringing them up. Let's see what's going on here. View. So what happened? It didn't want to let you in?
Yeah. I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, hold on one second. I'm switching my headphones over here. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. It was weird. It was acting up. It didn't want to let me in right away.
Strange. Hold on. I'm just switching some things around. I just realized I've been talking into this mic this whole time, but I didn't even have it set up to do the mic, so it's probably super echoey and shit audio quality.
Actually, it wasn't that bad.
Oh, cool. That's lovely. That's hilarious. So, yeah. So what was it saying as you were trying to get in?
It said it would allow it. Do you want to allow access? And then I had to click yes to a whole bunch of questions and select my account and agree to terms and conditions and all that kind of stuff.
And you didn't have to do that before, right?
Actually, once the other time I did as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what's going on with you? Where do you need help right now?
Well, actually, no, that was really helpful. I think one of the things, and you're going through this right now in all likelihood, is the thing that the negative self-talk is coming from this idea that I'm supposed to be this far along by now. And it's one of those says who, nothing really bad is happening. I mean, life is okay. And what you said really rang a chord with me, because it's in the struggles that I have had the most massive growth in the shortest period of time. And sometimes you just have to embrace those struggles. And I think that's what like right now, I did the same thing, right? I moved across the country to a foreign place on faith that this was the right place for me to go.
Right.
And honestly, it's been wonderful. Nothing really bad has happened. But yet then I've gone to 1 or 2 seminars where they're like, okay, I want you to get 10 clients by the time we meet for our advanced seminar. And the advanced seminar is coming up 2 weeks from now. And it's like, all right, shit, I don't have any clients. I'm a complete loser, and I sort of sent myself into a tailspin because of this idea. I'm supposed to be over here by now. And I'm kind of realizing says who, because some of the foundational things that I needed to be doing were like dialing in my morning routines, getting healthy, starting to meditate, starting to think right. There was just a whole bunch of things that were really important. So kind of interested in your perceptions on this, because I think you're going through something very similar to that.
Yeah, I am. And it's amazing. Like when you talk about I should be there by now. We put those pressures on ourselves, and oftentimes they're external pressures from our peer group or family, who knows. But it's like the one thing that I've really learned over the last year is to detach yourself from the outcome. And it's great to cast that big vision. And we're so used to setting goals and attaching time to them. But all you're really doing is creating a shortage and a void, because every day you get closer to that, if you're not making at least the same respective progress, you're falling behind. That's a shortage versus waking up every single day and saying, how can I start this company as fast as freaking possible? How can I attract as many coaching clients in the right way at the perfect time, and taking steps there every single day to just know that, hey, did I do everything that I could do today? Did I focus on the highest income and impact activities? Did I do the highest leverage activities every single day? Did I give it my all? And if so, then freaking awesome. You feel good. Otherwise, you reevaluate and realize where you need to make those adjustments, which is really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's good.
One thing that I heard Gary say on my first day is we were talking about, people were constantly asking him, what should we be focusing on for professional development? What are the things that I should be doing to grow my business? And he looked at the group, and there were 20 of the top agents in the entire country in the room. And he looked at them and he said, you're asking the wrong question. And we all kind of looked at him like, come on, what? I thought that was a pretty good question. And he said, when you put the man together, the world falls into place. But if the man is not together, the world falls apart. And basically what he was talking about is, so often we focus on, what do we need to be doing to grow our business? What do we need to be doing to earn more income? What do we need to be doing to attract that next client? But what we're not asking is, what do we need to be doing to be as healthy as possible, physically and mentally? What do we need to be doing to ensure that our marriages are healthy and that our relationships with our children are as strong as can be? The things that really matter in life. When you focus first on putting the man together, the world suddenly falls into place. Everything else takes care of itself. But it's like, for anybody who's listening to this, who has dealt with relationship stress or personal health challenges, very hard to perform at work and be the best you possible if you're not there. So what are your thoughts?
No, that's actually been exactly my experience, that for the last couple of years, I've focused on building the business and completely ignored my health. And now that I've gotten the morning routine in, it's like every day, and it's, it feels like it's taking too long, because I've been getting up at 6, and my morning routine goes until about 9, because I go down to the beach, I watch the sunrise, I meditate, I I've been doing a lot of things, exercising, but the thing that's interesting is when 9 comes along and I'm ready to hit the day, I freaking kill it because I know what to do. I'm charged. And I feel like I took care of myself, and that because in doing that, that was foundational to all the other things that I need to do. Like I did the one really important thing first. Now what needs to be done? It's kind of a focusing activity in addition to I don't even know how to say it. It's just you're being congruent with yourself, like how can you honor the mission if you're, setting yourself up from a heart attack and you're overweight and you're eating crap and you're using coffee to jack yourself up for energy,
Yep.
You can't do it.
100%. Totally with you. What was I going to say? It was interesting. In the book, they talk about, the one thing they ask, the focusing question of the book is, what's the one thing that I can do that such by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? And you can apply that to any facet of your life. What's the one thing I can do for my business such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? And they start talking about the concept of time blocking, really just whipping out your calendar and blocking off your time for your one thing. But in doing it, the first thing that you block your time off is not your one thing. The first thing you block time off for is vacation, which was really interesting. We're like, what? You plan of everything you plan vacation first? And they're like, yeah, because you need to set that time to recharge, to invest in yourself, to enjoy the time off. The next thing you block off is not your one thing, it's your planning time to ensure that you have that done. Then the third thing you block off is your one thing, which I'm just going, oh, that's so interesting. And how many of us do that? How many of us, very first thing we block off is vacation time? Nobody. Then planning time? Nobody. We'd be lucky if we're blocking off time for our highest leverage activity. And I just realized how backwards most of us have it, which was really interesting.
Yeah, interesting. One of the questions that I had too was, as you were doing this, because I mean, your story, as I mentioned to you in the email, your story was really inspiring. But I think there was also a lot of foundational work that you did even the year before you started in with the podcast that kind of built the whole person. Because like by the time I saw you, by the time I was listening to the podcast, it was already, you had maybe 10 or 15 interviews in the can. You had already been changing your mindset. But even to get the idea for the podcast, even to know that you had to surround yourself with the right people, some big shifts must have occurred in your mind. And I was curious what happened, like in between the time that you got the shock that, okay, I need to, I don't want to end up like my friend that had the stroke. I don't want to end up being dependent on my sole source of income that just got slashed 40%, to I need to surround myself with heavy hitting mentors. There was a space of time where you were building, because, I've seen you take massive action that's been really cool. And now it's resulted in where you are today. But what was some of that foundational work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I remember being in an incredible state of confusion and really just flat out feeling lost. Because I hear you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I'm trying to build passive income. I'm making a lot of mistakes. I'm just burning through money. It's not working out. And I go, okay, you're the average of the 5 people. That makes sense logically if I'm surrounded by the right people. And I just remember starting out that journey going, how the hell do I suddenly surround myself with the right people? Why would they talk to me? What could I possibly say to them that would make them interested in me? How could I add value to them, make it worth their time? And just going through this process, meeting people and just feeling like it was going nowhere. But everything really shifted dramatically when I had a dinner with this guy. His name's Rich Brocchini. He's become a very close friend. He's older than me. He's somebody I really looked up to. And I remember us sitting at dinner and him seeing something in me that I never seen in myself, which was really interesting. The way that you perceive yourself, like your own image, others see something very different in you. And he's talking to me about all the value that I bring to the table. I'm just like, what? Like, I'm just starting this journey. I'm just a sales guy. And I remember him talking about how he had written a few books, and he's like, yeah, man, you should write a book. And I'm going, me write a book on what? And he started listing off all the things that I could write a book off on. And he was listing the outline of each of the books. I'm just going, holy crap, he's right. I could write a book on that. And I had never, ever considered that that is something that I could physically even do. But it just took that one person who thought a bigger game, who had been down the road just a little bit further than me, to look at my situation and just completely alter my perspective, that all of a sudden my mind went from here to, and then it just continued. At that point, it's that first interaction where all of a sudden you realize something's possible.
Mm-hmm.
That first aha where you're going, holy crap, I just had a belief that was shattered. The floodgates opened from there, because then all of a sudden, as I started surrounding myself with the people, you know, my head got bigger and bigger and bigger, not just in terms of my ego, which that happened too, but in terms of what was possible. And then it was just off to the races. And I think for you, just watching you, I mean, gosh, Experts Academy was what, 4 months ago?
Yeah, September, October, November, 2 months ago.
So, I mean, even 2 months, I mean,
yeah,
I feel like you've made a lot of strides, and it's just a matter of you've had that aha.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've had that single aha where you're just like, all right, it's possible. And then you go for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And it also makes a lot of sense that you had a coach, you had somebody that saw you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so important, to surround yourself with people who can reflect back the things that you don't see in yourself. Because I've had a lot of that recently, and that was one of the reasons why it was important to take a leap of faith to move to California, because like that's where the people are just showing up in my life that see these things. And similar to what you were saying, you know, people saying, you know, you should write a book, you're a good writer, you're creative. I'm like, huh? And then even reflecting back the business success, because I think the things that we've been good at, we take for granted. And we don't even realize that they're talents. It's like, oh yeah, I started a business and built it to 200 million with my friends, and they're like, but that didn't work out as well as I wanted it to, so I'm not really counting that. And they're like, whoa, wait, you know, hardly anybody builds a $200 million business. You should leverage that. I'm like, huh, okay. So it's just having people reflect back, because you get too caught up in your own personal story sometimes, and you discount things that are important that you shouldn't be discounting.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was at the Thrive conference, I'm trying to remember who was saying it. It might have been Gary Vaynerchuk, but he was just talking about, you have value in the sense that nobody has lived through what you've lived through. You know, you've had your own set of hardships and misfortunes, and you found a way to go through them. And there's somebody else who's in that exact same situation that you can suddenly learn from. And I think, you know, if you listen to the episode with Greg, the other listener of the podcast after Thrive, where, you know, he was in a rock and roll band and fell into a long road of addiction and just really felt like he was a loser. And he's far from it. And it took him getting to this event and somebody else to look at him and be like, nobody else has, you know, you're the CEO, you're an expert in Greg. And the moment he realized that there are other people who are struggling with addiction, that he could share his experience and help them get through that, all of a sudden, I mean, God, the guy's on freaking fire. It's crazy, which I just love seeing. It's really cool. One idea that you had thrown out there was doing a little role playing.
Sure.
Thoughts?
On which one of the topics?
I don't know. Where of all the things, of all the situations, what do you feel like you need help with?
I think the one thing that I need the most help with is just getting clarity. And you might have even had experience with this, but I could tell I've been resisting the shift back into more of a business model, to more of a consultant model, because I had it in my head that I was going to be a coach. And so as people have sort of advised me, yourself included, that I should leverage some of the business experience, there's that resistance. It's like, but I don't want to do that anymore. I was going to go do this coach thing, but it was the coach thing. And I realize it in other people when I see them with the rainbows and ponies, it's like, oh, the world's going to be so good.
Hold on. You see people with rainbows and ponies?
No, I've seen other people who have had the ideas of rainbows and ponies.
That's what I think about every night.
Oh, so cute. No, I mean, the people who have this wonderful idea that, like they have absolutely no experience, let's say in being a fisherman, but they're going to travel around the world and on a fishing boat and somehow meet with the indigenous peoples at each port and change their lives. Like,
right.
Wait, how did you make the jump? That just sound like a cool idea, or is that something you have some experience with? And I think that's the thing that I'm doing. It's like you have to take people where they are. They have their own set of reference points. And as you just got done saying, we are who we are because of the experiences we went through. So you can't leave them out of the equation. Whatever I'm going to do that adds value to the world has to be something that is actually valuable. That's part of my experience and part of my skill set. And I have no idea why there's some resistance to it, but I could tell that there's been some resistance to that idea because I had this idea, I'm going to be over here.
So what can we role play right now that'll help you with that?
Yeah, I wonder what would be.
That sounds like more of a limiting belief to me than anything.
Probably so. Yeah.
Well, let's explore that then. I find it very, you in your mind, it sounds like you have a clear delineation between consultant and coach.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay, fair. Can't you be both?
Yeah.
Okay. And then that could take form in the fact of like, you've got some consulting clients where you're consulting for companies, and you've got a few one-on-one coaching clients, and you're doing both. And this, since that's your wheelhouse right now, is underwriting this.
Mm-hmm.
Or is there a way that you can combine the two and it can be one client?
Yeah. Yeah.
Give me some situations where that would be possible.
Any type of company where in either of two things. One is the company's in very high growth and they want to develop their people. So part of their mission is to grow their team. And yet they also need operational experience. So a company that needs somebody to get in there and it's like, okay, look, I want you to run things, but at the same time, I also want you to figure out how to upgrade the staff because you're a consultant. We're not going to want you to hang around forever. So leave the staff in the position where they can run things for you. So you're teaching them operations and you're teaching them growth and coaching and development.
How many consultants do you think are out there currently who could do what you do just straight up on the business side?
On the supply chain side, maybe there's 50,000 in the country.
And how many of those people do you think are also experts when it comes to high performance coaching to the point where they could not only come in from the operational standpoint, but also deal with certain key players in developing them as well?
Geez, if I had to guess, it's 5% of the 50,000. So 250 at,
I'd say you're being generous.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say 5, and I was going to say that's probably accurate.
Yeah, maybe 5. That's probably about right. 5 with the range of experience and the depth that I've immersed myself just in the last 2 to 3 months. It'd be very few.
Does that change your messaging as you go out to recruit clients?
Yeah, that's good.
Do you think that changes the amount that you're able to charge?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because they won't. Yeah, it does. Yeah, now that I'm thinking, because I mean, it's like, look, if you want a consultant to come in and do the work, hire somebody else. If you want somebody to come in and do the work and leave you in a place where you don't need me anymore, which is exactly what you want a consultant for, then I'd be your guy.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel right now?
Good. Surprised. Because that was the right question to put those two things together.
I think this is fun that this just happened because it's like I literally just you were recorded as you watch from you like feeling your anxiety of like, what do I do? Do I do consultant? Do I do coaching? Like, which do I do? To ding, there was the light bulb, and oh crap, that's awesome.
You're gonna have to delete the recording now. It'll be
Absolutely not.
no, that's awesome. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, I think this is just comes back again to just thinking that bigger game, and not to say, not to imply that I think this bigger game, but sometimes just that person who is an outside perspective, who's not in your shoes, who's carrying around a set of blinders. We all have our own blinders on, to look at you and just ask a bigger question that makes you just think a little differently and very fast. Yeah, man. I think if you were to go out to market, to go to clients and just and to do some fact finding and searching for their pain, and in your proposal, because everybody's like, oh, I can come in and I can streamline this and I can improve efficiency here, and it's like you come in and it's like, yeah, I can do all that, but more importantly, like, I'm not your employee. I'm not just going to give you a fish. I need to teach you to fish. In order to do that for the long term, I have to develop your people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the only one who can come to who has built a $200 million business, who can operationally streamline your processes, but on top of that, take your executives to the next level from a performance and a mindset standpoint, to the point where they would have the mindset and the skills to legitimately operationalize and keep this thing going moving forward.
Yeah. That's right.
You become the only choice.
Right. Super cool. Yeah.
That is super cool.
Yeah. All right. To be continued. So yeah.
So what's your first step?
So my first step is to get the messaging clear in my mind, and then to start having conversations with companies, which just so happen to be right in the area that I'm living in right now, right? Like, I'm just south of Silicon Valley. And I think there's, like, a lot of the companies with this mindset are sitting up there, and they're waiting for, they're in high growth. They need somebody to get things done. And yet they also realize they're planning for their future growth, and it's funny because a lot of them think the way that you described Gary's thinking. They're playing the bigger game. How do we get to that 10x level? That's where they just assume that they're heading.
So let me ask you a question. You said you need to get your messaging right, then you need to go talk to them. Why wouldn't you do the opposite?
Yeah, true.
Where am I going with this?
Find out what they need before I try to come up with the solution.
And not only come up with what they need, but hear it in their words. And then you're not sitting here thinking, what's the right messaging? You're thinking they use the exact words, I'm looking for 10x growth.
Yeah.
And then that's in your messaging. For the people who are watching this, so often, and I still fall into this even though I constantly talk about it, we sit back and we imagine what the solution should be. And we go, all right, I got to be in action. I got to take action. And so we start developing the solution. The missing link is that you haven't talked to the customer yet. You haven't validated your ideas with the customers. So in Rob's shoes, to be able to go to these companies and ask them, not in a selling himself way, just to be like, hey, I'm genuinely curious. Like, I'm making some adjustments in my company, and I'm curious if I could ask you a few questions, not in a sales way, but where do you need help? Like, what's your pain from an operational standpoint? And to hear what they're going through and where they truly need their services, and to hear the exact wording that they use. And for him to then to be able to come back to them and be like, that's interesting. I was thinking of doing a solution that did X, Y, and Z, and you say it in their words. What would you pay for something like that? What would that be worth to you if a solution like that was brought to market? And they point blank tell you what the price would be worth.
That's how you know how to pick your price.
Yeah.
It's not hard. It's not hard. It's almost stupid how simple it is, yet people just don't do it.
Yeah. That's right.
So let me
Yeah.
ask you again, what's your next step?
Okay. Figure out the companies to call and start calling them.
I think that's good. I think also, I had a call today with this woman. Her name's Vicky Higgins, and she's been a very, very successful executive, and then has stepped out on her own as an entrepreneur. And she's been getting into the coaching space a little bit. And she was reaching out to me just to share with me, number one, just to catch up, but to share with me what is going on in her business. And I asked her how I could help her. And she said, honestly, I'm just calling up everybody I know to just tell them the breakthroughs that I've had with my business recently, to let people know what I'm doing, the services that I provide, not selling you at all. I just want to spread what I'm doing. That way, if you happen to know the right person, great. And I was like, hell yeah, power to you. It's just like we've talked about, casting, getting clear about where you need most help and just talking about it consistently, just sharing with everybody. So for you to be like, hey, in every single conversation, actually, let's just pivot this down. Who's the ideal customer?
The ideal customer is a high growth company that's probably already doing a couple $1 million, like between $1 and $10 million in business, because that's where they need to operate.
What kind of company?
For me, just because it aligns, it's a company that's doing something useful, and of course that's very subjective. It's a personal belief, but it's doing something useful. In other words, their motivation, the way that they're running their company, is to have some bigger purpose than just making the owners a ton of money.
So, too vague. Give me in one sentence who the ideal customer is and make it specific.
Okay. So it's a high growth, either technical company, so something that does resources or environmental improvements, and the CEO or the management of the company realizes the value of the people and wants to see the people in the team develop.
Was that good enough?
No, it's too long.
Yeah. When you say resources, I mean,
I'll just say environmental, so they'd be either in the environmental or technology space.
Perfect. Okay. So you are looking to have conversations with high growth environmental or technology companies in the 1 to 10 million range. And you leave it at that. And people be like, conversations on what? You're like, well, I specialize in operational efficiency or whatever you call it. And I'm looking just to chat with some of these companies because I'm trying to craft a disruptive consulting agency. And I'm interested in talking to these companies to figure out where their pain is.
Yep.
And you leave it at that.
Yeah.
If you open that conversation up with me, I'd be very curious in what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to start a disruptive consulting agency. I would write that down.
I am writing that down. Yeah, you can bet I'm going to be listening to the replay on this thing.
And I think that's the value of thinking this through beforehand. Because I mean, like Rob and I have role played things before, and I do this too sometimes, where all of a sudden I find myself in a situation where I'm like, oh shit, I need to figure out what my pitch is. I'm not going to wing it right here. And like as I'm approaching the person in my head, I'm role playing in my head what it would be. And that's just the salesperson in me. It's second nature now that I just do that, but not everybody has that skill. Not everybody can roll something off the tongue like I just did. You're going to have to work harder at it, but it makes all the difference in the world, because having certain words that just sound good to other people, that provoke their thoughts, that make them want to ask more questions, that's where the magic is. That's where you get the results. It's because you're not walking around with a billboard saying, I'm looking for these people. You just got to be able to very gracefully say a little sentence or two that's going to make people want to dig deeper. And ultimately, that's how you start getting the connections.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know any of those specific companies by name?
Yeah, actually, there's a list of people, and I was going to go through them. It's called the Game Changers 500. It's a list of 500 companies that are doing, I'll say, socially responsible things right now. So, I mean, there's ones you know about, obviously, like Google or Whole Foods or Tom's Shoes. But there's also, 497 other ones that may not be household names.
Do you know if you had to identify the 3 to 5 key people within the company from position standpoint, who those people would be?
Right. Yeah. From they would either be the VP of operations, or if the company is large enough, they'd be the director level people on the supply chain or operation side.
So at that point, you can kind of start to graph out company 1, company 2, 3, 4, 5, like in an Excel doc. And then you've got VP of operations, supply chain, blah, 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 blah. And then you go scour through LinkedIn to look for those types of titles, or you hire a virtual assistant who's good at data research to mine online, to find those contact names, to find those emails. And you purchased Creating a 7-Figure Network. So there's the module in there on how to find anyone's email.
Yeah.
At which point you could leverage that. And then it's simply a matter of crafting a very easy email. It just says, hey, so-and-so, let's talk about this. What would I write in that email copy? Have you worked with any other big companies like that you could reference?
Not as a consultant. No, actually, well, yeah. I mean, the wind turbine manufacturing company.
Would it hold any weight? Would that mean anything to them?
Let's see. That was approximately a $1 billion organization. They probably would know of it.
Okay. Well, that's, then you throw it out there, I've consulted with whatever company, parentheses, $1 billion in revenue. And at this point, I'm looking to do some research, not sell you anything, on a disruptive consulting agency that would specialize in your company. And I'm curious where your biggest challenges are right now. I know you're busy. Even a few-word reply would be much appreciated. Your point is to get them to engage with a reply of any sort,
right?
Not to book the appointment.
Yeah.
And if they reply, and then the dialogue begins. But I think if you cast a wide enough net, and if you do this enough times and you begin to tweak your approach and figure out what works and what doesn't, you'll start to get people on the phone. And then once those people are on the phone, you start asking for referrals.
Right.
And again, you're not selling anything. You're just trying to figure out their pain. And once you figure out the pain that's deep enough and consistent enough, that's when you start coming back to those people and start saying, hey, I'm thinking about developing a solution for something like this. What would that ideal solution look like? And they'll be like, oh, I'm looking for somebody who can come in and do X, Y, and Z. And you're like, oh, interesting. If somebody were able to do that, how much would that be worth to you? And they're like, oh, man, we'd pay X millions of dollars, Robert.
Yeah.
You're like, ah, interesting. Okay.
Cool.
Want to do it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I might even save you some money on that.
Right. Yeah. So interesting. One final concept that I'll leave people with tonight is this 5-to-1 value ratio. In episode 57, you'll hear Dave at the end talking about, because I had a lot of limiting beliefs as I was negotiating. Where the negotiations started was not at a compensation level that would have allowed me to leave my medical device job. And I had in my mind a number that was very, very, very different. And even meeting in the middle would not have been acceptable, would not have allowed me to make the switch. And so here I am really wanting this opportunity, but just could not see any possible way that we would meet at a place that would be win-win for both parties. And this is when Dave said, it's not a matter of negotiating, it's a matter of value. If I gave you $100, if I literally handed you $100 bill right now, would you give me $20 back? It's like, yeah, all day, every day. He's like, exactly. That's what you have to do. You have to communicate that you're giving at least $100 worth of value, and all you're asking for is 20 in return. And in your case, Rob, as you start to if you do follow through with this and start to get on the phone with people and you start to identify what the pain is and you start to sketch a solution and identify what that would be worth to them, to be able to identify the fact that you're about to give them $100, but you're only going to ask for 20.
Mm-hmm.
You build a model based off that disproportionate value.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
Very interesting. So marinate on that.
Cool. No, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you if you are still watching this at this point, thank you so much for sticking with us. And we will talk to you in a few weeks on the next call. See you later.
Very good. Get some sleep.
Thanks.